welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video we're going to learn about the modular board expansion for Scythe, published by Stonemaier Games, who helped sponsor this video. Because this is an expansion, you do have to have the core game, and we have a separate tutorial for that, which I'll link to below. Though I will mention, you can also play this with the expansions that have been released at the time of this recording, including the Rise of Fenris, though they do recommend you don't use the modular board when you're playing the campaign. That said, what this offers is a new way to vary the map, changing the locations of the factions, the various resources, and other elements so that every time you play, you have a different layout. So join me at the table and let's see how this works. To set up, randomly select either side of the newly included board, and although the layout will look similar on both sides, the placement of the various printed resources is different. But both sides do have these large empty spaces. On them, you will randomly place the double-sided modular tiles into the empty areas for them, picking a random side. Just ensure they are in an orientation that matches the rest of the board. And if the placement happens to result in a lake being directly adjacent to a home base, then just flip that tile over, and this will always fix that. The next step is performed in one of two possible ways, depending on whether or not you're using the Rise of Fenris expansion. Assuming you aren't, then shuffle and randomly place one of these home base tiles face up onto every one of these symbols. And you'll do this no matter the player count, but you'll always have one area that shows this symbol, and that is always specifically inactive. If you want to use the modular board with the Rise of Fenris expansion, there is a slight alteration to the setup, but as that might spoil some of the contents of the campaign, I'll leave that for you to learn about in the included rules for the modular board expansion. You'll also find 8 new structure bonus tiles included with this expansion, and these should be shuffled into the original tiles and played with, not just when you're using the modular boards, but in any game of Scythe that you play. If you have any questions about how the new tiles work, you'll find them all explained here in the included rules that come with the modular board expansion. When players are getting their personal boards during setup, you'll randomly deal a player mat to each person, and starting with the highest numbered one and continuing in descending value order, each person will select an available faction. You'll want to consider the Riverwalk abilities of the factions that you're choosing, especially as it relates to the resources that are immediately available around that faction's base with this new random layout. And this is an area where more experienced players would do well to provide some advice to newer players about their options. Also note, the player with this industrial mat may not choose the Roosevelt faction, and the player with the patriotic mat may not choose the Crimean faction. And these are just restrictions for game balance purposes. Either way, the first player of the game is then the one with the lowest numbered mat as shown here, and then the game is played starting with them and going in clockwise order. And that covers the additional rules that you need to consider when you're setting up with the modular boards. Now when you're playing, I should point out that if there is water on a non-lake territory that is directly adjacent to a lake, like this, then this water is considered to be a part of that lake. You don't need Riverwalk to cross this anymore, but you would need Lake Walk to be able to enter here, just as with any normal lake in the game. The game also proposes a variant where you can choose to remove modular tiles based on the player count to leave parts of the board empty. After player mats have been selected, based on the player count and the home bases that were chosen, you can choose to remove 2 or 3 of these tiles in a 2 or 3 player game, or remove just 1 in a 4-player game, but don't remove any in games of 5 to 7 players. There's also a quick piece of advice provided in the instructions for solo players, but I'll leave that for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's how you use the modular board expansion for Scythe. Now, if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you've found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notifications anytime we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.